Hi everyone, this is Jeff Suda with the Steel Utility Pole Coalition, and today we're going to try something a little new with a new series called Steel Poles Explained. In this series, I'll cover topics related to steel utility poles, distribution systems, and pretty much anything interesting in our industry. I'll try and post a new video weekly, so keep an eye out for those. For today's topic, I'm going to cover cascading failures in distribution systems and how steel utility poles can reduce the likelihood of that happening. So what is a cascading failure? A cascading failure is when one element fails and then shifts its load to a nearby element in the system beyond their capacity. The way we see this in distribution systems is when one pole fails, shifting its load to the next pole, bringing it down, and so on and so forth, to where you can have many poles downed up to a couple hundred feet. What causes cascading failures? So really the main thing is heavy loading or extreme loading due to weather events, such as an ice storm, tornado, hurricane, or heavy wind. Another way we can see cascading failures is when you have increased deterioration of pole strength in a line. How can steel utility poles reduce the likelihood of cascading failure? There are three main methods that steel utility poles help, and the first is the failure method. So comparing steel to wood or fiberglass, for a wood pole, you have a range where the pole is pliable in a certain loading range, but then once you exceed that loading range, the pole breaks. For a steel pole, you have that pliable or elastic range, but you also have a plastic deformation range. So basically, once you exceed the loading, the pole will bend and will not bend back, so that one pole needs to be replaced, but a lot of the energy in that loading event will be eaten up, really not pushing it to the next pole, eliminating the cascading event. The second way that steel utility poles reduce the risk is steel utility poles are a manufactured and engineered product. Comparing to wood, which is a harvested product, which might have knots, curves, bows, interesting grain patterns, you might not be getting the characteristics you're buying in a pole because of that variance. With steel utility poles, the characteristics you're buying, you'll get 100% of the time. The third way that steel utility poles help reduce this risk is through their deterioration methods. So for a wood pole, the deterioration method usually is through heart rot. So a wood pole is pressure treated with a preservative, and the center of the pole usually has the least amount of preservative, and as the pole ages, that amount goes down. So fungus or bacteria get into that pole and deteriorate from the center. As the pole ages, usually around 10 years is when this fungus starts on the average wood pole. Now this deterioration takes a long time, but throughout this deterioration, the strength of the wood pole is actually decreasing. So in a system where you might have a higher rate of deterioration, you also have a higher rate of loss of strength in a pole. Now comparing that to a galvanized steel pole, the galvanization or the zinc is the protective barrier on the steel. This zinc layer is designed to last the life of the pole, so 50, 60, 70 years depending on the environment. As the pole ages or deteriorates, the zinc is sacrificed or consumed in this deterioration, but has no effect to the strength of the pole while the zinc exists. So in the example where you have a higher rate of deterioration than what you expected, in a steel pole, you can come back to that and you can see the zinc is leaving quicker or deteriorating quicker from the pole than you thought, but the strength was not deteriorating as that went. So when you're looking at how to implement this, now that you know steel utility poles can really help reduce cascading of failures, the best thing to do is replace an entire line with all steel poles. But if you're really looking to upgrade a line or harden a line, one thing that we see a lot is replacing a few critical poles in a span to really stop that. So if you start to get a cascading failure, once it reaches the steel pole, hopefully it'll stop that event, saving a lot of poles in that. So that's it for today. Let me know your feedback. If you have any topics you like covered, or if you prefer a different format. As I'd mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a new video series, but I look forward to making some videos on this.